I do not know off the top of my head.
So the average for non-Facebook platforms is 1,500. It's been reported that Facebook has as many as 29,000 data points for an average Facebook user. Do you know how many points of data that Facebook has on the average non-Facebook user?
Congressman, I do not off the top of my head, but I can have our team get back to you afterwards.
I appreciate that. It's been admitted by Facebook that you do collect data points on non-average users. So my question is, can someone who does not have a Facebook account opt out of Facebook's involuntary data collection?
Congressman, anyone can turn off and opt out of any data collection for ads, whether they use our services or not. But in order to prevent people from scraping public information, which again, the search feature that you brought up only showed public information, people's names and profiles and things that they've made public, but nonetheless, we don't want aggregating even public information.
But so
block that. So we need to know when someone is trying to repeatedly access our services.
If I may, Mr. Zuckerberg, I'm about out of time. It may surprise you that we've not talked about this a lot today. You've said everyone controls their data, but you're collecting data on people that are not even Facebook users, that have never signed a consent, a privacy agreement, and you're collecting their data. And it may surprise you that on Facebook's page, when you go to, I don't have a Facebook account and would like to request all my personal data stored by Facebook, it takes you to a form that says, go to your Facebook page, and then on your account settings, you can download your data. So you're directing people that don't have access, don't even have a Facebook page, to have to sign up for a page to release their data. We've got to fix that. The last question that I have is, have you disclosed to this committee or to anyone all information Facebook has uncovered about Russian interference on your platform?
Congressman, we are working with the right authorities on that, and I'm happy to answer specific questions here as well.
Gentleman's time's expired.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Boy, I tell you.
Chair now recognizes the gentleman from
What's so dope
Virginia,
about
Mr.
this
Griffith,
is
for
you get to
4
see how
minutes.
people
Thank you very much, Mr.
reactions and
Chairman.
comments are
Appreciate
about
you being
this.
here.
The American
Let me
people
state
are
up
so
front
stupid.
that, I share the privacy concerns that you've heard from a lot of us, and I appreciate your statements and willingness to, help us figure out a solution that's good for the American people. So I appreciate that. Secondly, I have to say that it's my understanding that yesterday,
They've been on my
Senator
ass
Shelley
today.
Moore Capito, my friend in my neighboring state of West Virginia, asked you about
You get to
Facebook's
see the
plans
old
with
white
rural
man check
broadband,
the
and
young
you
white
agreed
man.
to share that information with her at some point in time, get her up to date and up to speed. I was excited to hear that you were excited about that and passionate about it.
We need some
My
black
district
people
is very
on there.
similar to West Virginia as it borders it, and we have a lot of rural areas.
Man, Mark
Can
going
you
through it
also
right now.
agree,
But they,
yes
you
or
know
no,
what they do is they
to
do
update me on that
a
with the
lot of
information
body
available?
language,
Yes, Congressman.
speech,
We will certainly
training and
follow
things
up
of
with you
that
on
nature
this.
for him. So
Part
it's
of the
paying
mission
off
of
a little
connecting
bit
everyone
because
around the
he go
world
around and do this all
means
the
that everyone
time.
needs to
But
be able to be on the internet.
you know,
Unfortunately,
getting in front of
too much
Congress always
the internet
pressurized for
infrastructure
people.
today is too expensive for the current
What you
business
say
models
can be used
of
against you.
carriers to support a lot of rural communities with the quality of service that they deserve. So we are building a number of specific technologies, from planes that can beam down internet access to repeaters and mesh networks, to
You
make
say
it so that
planes like a
all
big
these
guy-
communities can be
that's
served,
it.
and we'd be happy to follow up with you on this. To
Appreciate that, and we've got a lot of drone activity going on in our district, whether it's the University of Virginia at Wise or Virginia Tech, so we'd be happy to help out there too.
Drone
Let me
activity. Look
switch
at these
gears.
people, man.
You talked about trying to ferret out misinformation, and the question becomes, who decides what is misinformation? So when some of my political opponents put on the Facebook that they think Morgan Griffith is a bum, I think that's misinformation. What say you?
Congressman, without weighing in on that specific piece of content, let me outline the way that we approach fighting fake news in general. There are three categories of fake news that we fight.
Listen to this.
One are basically spammers. They're economic actors like the Macedonian trolls that I think we've all heard about. Basically, folks who don't have an ideological goal. They're just trying to write the most sensational thing they can in order to get people to click on it so they can make money on ads. It's all economics. So the way to fight that is we make it so they can't run our ads, they can't
this
make
is
money.
game. Y'all better
we
do
make
this.
it so that we can detect what they're doing and show it less in newsfeed so they can make less money. When they stop making money, they just go and do something else because they're economically inclined. The second category are basically state actors, right? So what we've found with Russian interference, and those people are setting up fake accounts. So for that, we need to build AI systems that can go and identify a number of their fake account networks. And just last week, we traced back the Russian activity to
This is one big
to
ad
specific,
for why you should use
fake
Facebook
account
ads and
network
how
that
profitable
Russia
they
had
are.
in Russia.
Their entire company
to
is based on
influence
that. That's their whole
Russian
business
culture
model.
and other Russian-speaking countries around them. And we took down a number of their fake accounts and pages, including a news organization that was sanctioned by by the Russian government as a Russian state news organization. So that's a pretty big action. But removing fake accounts is the other way that we can stop the spread of false information.
What he was about to say,
My time is running out. I just want to point this out, though, as part of that,
He almost
who's
slipped
going to
up.
decide what is misinformation?
He's about to say
We've
removing
heard
those
about
fake
the
accounts is one way
Catholic
we can fake like
University
we
and the
doing
cross.
something.
We've heard about a candidate. We've heard about the conservative ladies. A firearm shop, lawful in my district, had a similar problem. It has also been corrected.
They have to tell the truth
And
because
so
they
I
can
wonder
use that
if
against
the
them later
industry has
on.
thought about, not only are
So
we
this-
looking
this
at it,
may
but the industry
seem
thought
like
about doing something like underwriter
unimportant
laboratories,
questioning,
which was set up when
but it's important
electricity
because
was new to
whatever
determine
he
whether
say
or not
on
the
this
devices were safe. And people thought
stand
about
is
doing
what's
something like
supposed to
that. So
stand
it's
that they
not
can use against
Facebook
them and be
alone,
like,
but
yo,
the
you
industry
said this
saying,
so
wait
and
a
so
minute,
and
this
so and
is
so
probably
about your policy.
misinformation, setting up guidelines that everybody can agree are fair.
Yes, Congressman. That's actually the third category that I was going to get to next after economic spammers and state actors with fake accounts. One of the things that we're doing is working with a number of third parties so if people flag things as false news or incorrect, we run them by third-party fact checkers who are all accredited by this Poynter Institute of Journalism. There are firms of all leanings around this who do this work, and that's an important part of the effort.
Gentleman's time has expired. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Tonko, for 4 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Zuckerberg, I want to follow up on a question asked by Mr. McNerney, where he talked about visiting
Y'all can find the black people on
websites
Congress?
and the fact that Facebook
That's what we need to do is have a Congress hearing for Congress.
As you visit those websites, you can have that deleted.
Remove that
I'm
old ass.
informed that there's not a way to do that, or are you telling us that you're announcing a new policy?
Congressman, my understanding is that if we have information from you visiting other places, then you have a way of getting access to that and deleting it and making sure that we don't store it anymore. In the specific
Store it
question that
anymore.
the
Well,
other
they
congressman
track you.
asked,
Once you get
I
on
think it's possible
Facebook, they
that
basically
we just
saying they
didn't
track
have
your
the
data
information that he was
everywhere,
asking about
collect
in
it
the
so
first
that they
place, and
can
that's why it wasn't there.
use it to sell ad
3 million
information
user
or
accounts were
build
breached at Yahoo in
your data
2013,
against you so they can get you
145
to
million at
consistently
eBay in
use
2014,
Facebook more.
143
It's
million
all
at
about data,
Equifax
man.
in
This is
2017,
the data
78
race
million
right now.
at Anthem in 2015, 76 million at JP Morgan Chase in 2014. The list goes on and on. The security of all that private data is gone, likely sold many times over to the highest bidder on the dark web. We live in an information age. Data breaches and privacy hacks are not a question of if, they're a question of when. But the case with Facebook is slightly different. The 87 million accounts extracted by Cambridge Analytica are just the beginning, with likely dozens of other third parties that have accessed this information. As far as we know, the dam is still broken. As you have noted, Mr. Zuckerberg, Facebook's business model is based on capitalizing on the private personal information of your
Facebook
users.
is a
Data
business.
security should be a central pillar of this model.
People
And with
forget
your
that.
latest vast breach of privacy and the widespread political manipulation that followed it, the question this committee must ask itself is what role the federal government should play in protecting the American people and the democratic institutions
Boy,
that
that's
your
such
platform and others like
what
it
America
have put at
government
risk.
should play in
In this
protecting
case,
the
you gave
American
permission
people.
to mine the data of
Boy,
some
y'all,
87
even
million
worse than
users
Zuckerberg.
based on the deceptive consent of just a fraction of that number. When they found out I was going to be speaking with you today, my constituents asked me to share some of their concerns in person. How can they protect themselves on your platform? Why should they trust you again with their likes, their loves, their lives? Users trusted Facebook to prioritize user privacy and data
Boy,
security,
that's
and
where
that
y'all
trust
lost.
has
If you
been
ever
shattered.
trusted Facebook or
I'm
any
encouraged
other
Facebook is
website that
committed
is
to making changes.
capital
I am
based,
indeed wary that you are only
You a
acting
fool.
now out of concern for your brand and only making changes that should have been made a long time ago. You have described this as an arms race.
that boy.
But every time we saw what precautions you have, or in most cases
he's
have
trying to
not
hide his emotions
your
because
company
he's
is
been
caught
taught
unprepared and ready to issue another apology.
about body
I'm left
language.
wondering
He
again
don't
why
want that to be
Congress should
used
trust
later.
you
He's
again.
Yeah, he just
We'll be watching you closely
that
to
was
ensure
that
that
fear
Facebook
right there,
follows
that
through on these
apprehension when he
commitments.
just
Many of my
swallowed
constituents have
that.
asked about your
Nervous.
business model, where users are the product. Mary of Half
See,
Moon in my
naturally, you're
district called
supposed to
it
have a lot of body language and your
infuriating.
face is
Andy of
supposed to move.
Schenectady, New York asked, why doesn't Facebook pay its users
But
for
he's
their
been taught to
incredibly
mask
valuable
it.
data? Facebook claims that users
pretty
rightly
good.
own and control their data, yet their data keeps being exposed on your platform, and these breaches cause more and more harm each time. You have said Facebook was built to empower its users. Instead, users are having their information abused with absolutely
If you
no
look at
recourse.
the guy behind him,
In light of this harm,
this is basically
what
how he would
liability
be
should
reacting
Facebook
if he
have?
wasn't on
When users' data
trial.
is mishandled, who is responsible and what
Constantly
recourse do
looking
users
down.
have? Do you bear that liability?
Congressman, I think we're responsible for protecting people's information for sure. But one thing that you said that I want to provide some clarity
Do you
on.
bear the liability?
Well, you said
Well,
earlier.
you don't never ask questions.
You
Answer questions
referenced that you
directly.
thought that we were only taking action after this came to light. Actually, we made significant changes to the platform in 2014 that would have made this incident with Cambridge Analytica impossible to happen again today. I wish we'd made those changes a couple of years earlier because this whole app got people to use it back in 2013 and 2014. And if we had made the changes a couple of years earlier, then we would have.
Gentleman's time has expired. Chair
Boy,
recognizes.
they
Chairman, if I might ask
slick.
that,
The time
other
expired without him
questions that
answering
my
the question
constituents
at
have
all.
Be answered by unanimous consent.
Without objection, of course.
Then he
That's-
gonna
that
take a
goes for
sip
all
of that
members.
orange juice when he
Chair
get real
recognizes the gentleman
nervous.
from Florida, Mr.
That saves
Gilroy,
him.
for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. And thanks for your testimony.
Let me see if
Mr.
y'all can y'all find the black person in there?
Well, first of all, I wanted to follow up with
They
Mr.
talked about Facebook
Mr.
doing
McKenry's
experiments on people
testimony.
earlier.
This is bad
And Facebook
stuff,
runs
Mr.
experiments
Zuckerberg,
on
with
people
regard
all
to
the
illegal
time
online
for their
pharmacies.
reaction. So that
When
they can
are
collect the
these-
data on
those
their
ads?
reaction
I
so
mean,
they can
when are you
keep
gonna take
people
those
using
off? I
it.
think we need an
Some
answer
people
to that.
addicted
I
to
think they
negative
need to
things,
get
some
off.
people
We
addicted
need
to
get
positive.
these
So they
off
show
as
people
soon as
different
possible.
things,
Can
positive
you
and
give us an
negative.
answer, a clear answer as to when
Ads,
these
posts, and things of that
pharmacies-
nature
We have
on
an
Facebook.
epidemic here with regard to the opioids. I think we're
Now they
owed
talking about
a
this
clear
opioid
answer,
epidemic as if this is the worst thing that
definitive
happened in the
answer
country,
as to
only
when
because
these
it
ads will
affects
be offline.
white people more.
Congressman, if people flag those ads for us, we will take
And
them down now.
Big Pharma is not
Now.
able to
By
capitalize
the end
on
of the day.
90% of the
If
accounts
people
that's
flag them
fake
for
on
us, we will
Facebook.
look at them as quickly as we can. That
Well, you have knowledge
happens
now,
today.
obviously. You have knowledge. You have knowledge of those ads.
But
You begin
Facebook
to
doesn't
take
want to
them
go
out
fight
down today.
against the people
The ads
that are
flagged
taking
for
out
us, we will
ads
review and
because that's
take
how they
down
make their money.
if they violate our
So they're not
policies.
going to create their
Which I believe
artificial
the ones that
intelligence
you're talking about
to
did.
attack people
Very
who's
legal.
taking
They
out
clearly
ads. That's
violate.
attacking their own
But what I
customers.
think really
And
needs to happen
customers are
here
always
is
first in
not
business,
just us reviewing content that gets flagged for us. We need to be able to build tools that can proactively go out and identify what might be these ads for opioids before people even have to flag them for us to review.
I agree.
And
agree.
that's going to be a longer term thing in order to build that solution. So, but today, if someone flags the ads for us, we will take them down.
Work on those tools as soon as possible, please.
Man, they just let. I didn't
Okay,
even know you can go buy
next question.
opioids
A
and all those
constituent
drugs on
of mine,
Facebook. This is
District,
one big
12
ad. Everybody about to
before
get off
Tampa
now. They
area
use the
came to
drugs.
me recently
They didn't notice.
what
I'm about to
was
go
a
check the
clear
ads
violation
and put
of
it in
your
order.
privacy policy. In this case, a third-party organization publicly posted personal information about my constituent on his Facebook page. This included his home address, voting record, degrading photos, and other information. In my opinion, this is cyberbullying. For weeks, my constituent tried
hold up.
reaching out to Facebook on multiple occasions
Boy,
through its report feature.
it's interesting
But
because
the
you want these
offending
sort of things to
content
happen.
remained. It was only when my office got involved that the posts were removed almost immediately for violating Facebook policy. How does Facebook's self-reporting policy work to prevent misuse, and why did it take an act of Congress, a member of Congress, to get, again, a clear privacy violation removed from Facebook? If you can answer that question, I'd appreciate it, please.
Congressman, that clearly sounds like a big issue and something
What
that
I
would violate our
find troubling
policies.
is the
I don't have
American
specific
people have
knowledge
so
of that
much
case,
trust
but what I
in
imagine
Facebook
happened, given what
and
you
Mark
just said,
Zuckerberg is
is
if
they
that's really
reported it
their
to us,
friend.
and
But
one of the people who reviews content probably
90,
made an enforcement
80% of
error.
Americans
And
are
then
dumb.
when
It's
you
the
reached
truth,
out,
and
you
I'm
probably
talking
looked
about
at it
dumb on an
again and
ignorant
realized
level,
that it
not an
that it
educational.
violated the policies and
Educational
took it
too.
down.
We on the bottom of the
We have
totem
a
pole,
number
so
of
it's easy to
steps that we need to
manipulate the
take
American
to
people.
improve the accuracy of our enforcement.
You have a company
that's
that
that's a
let
big
me-
issue.
You have a
It
company
has to
that
be
actively tells you that we are committed to running experiments on the American people so that we basically can collect data points to get them to use Facebook more and also sell that data point in the form of ads to other companies because our business model is profit based. And the American people agree with this. And when you look at the comments from the American people, and people all over, it's not just American, but the fact that both of the Congress and Facebook are crooked as hell. So let's get that out the way. But you need this sort of transparency in any big company that has such a big power control. Facebook has 2 billion users. That's bigger than most countries and continents in the world. So that's a very important thing for them to have transparency on the type experiments that they do because that really, really has an effect on the whole world and the whole paradigm. But people's trust in systems and companies, things of that nature, says a lot. But the most important thing y'all need to get about this is when they get to talk about the transparency of how effective these ads are and what the company does so you can use it for capital because Facebook is a business. So let's get back to it.
Is, as you may be aware, there have been numerous media reports about how more than
Got a sister up finally.
3,000 Russian ads were bought on Facebook to incite racial and religious division and chaos in
Talk
the
about
U.S.
it.
during the 2016 election. Those ads specifically characterized and weaponized African American groups like Black Lives Matter, in which ads suggested through propaganda or fake news, as people call it these days, that they were a rising threat. Do you think that the lack of diversity, culturally competent personnel in your C-suite and throughout your organization, in which your company did not detect or disrupt and investigate these claims, are a problem in this regard?
Both, but lack of diversity on Congress
I
and lack
agree
of
that we need to
diversity on
work on
Facebook.
diversity. In this specific case, I don't think that that was the issue because we were frankly slow to identifying the whole Russian misinformation operation and not just that specific example. Going forward, we're going to address this by verifying the identity of every single advertiser who's running political or issue-oriented ads to make it so that foreign actors or people trying to
Look how
smooth their identity
his
or say that they're
eyebrows
someone
don't
that they're
move,
not
and his facial
cannot
expressions don't move.
run political ads or run large pages of the type.
So whether they were
something he
Russian
didn't
or
talk.
not, when
That's
you
not
have
normal.
propaganda, how are you addressing that? Because this was extremely harmful during the last election cycle and can continue to be so in the upcoming elections and throughout
Facebook
the
as your
year,
propaganda
right?
machine
I'm concerned that they're not
for your own
minds
business,
that
for your own
are
agenda. That's what they telling you. It's a fair
looking at
game.
these things and being able to see how this would impact on civil society. If everyone within the organization is monolithic, then you can miss these things very easily. And we've talked about diversity forever with your organization. What can you say today when you look at how all of this operates that you can do immediately to make sure that we have the types of viewing or reviewing that could enable us to catch this in its tracks?
Congresswoman, we announced a change in how we're going to review ads and big pages so that now, going forward, we're going to verify the identity and location of every advertiser who's running political or issue ads or and the identities.
Good. We'd like you to get back to us with a timeline on that.
That will be in place for these elections.
Okay, fabulous. When Mr. Kogan sold the
don't know what you're looking for, black
Facebook-based
people.
data that he acquired through the Quiz app to Cambridge Analytica, did he violate Facebook's policies at the time?
Yes, Congresswoman.
When the Obama campaign collected millions of Facebook users' data through their own app during the 2012 election, did it violate Facebook's policies at the time?
No, Congresswoman, it did not.
I hope you understand that this distinction provides little comfort to those of us concerned about our privacy online. Regardless of political party, Americans desperately need to be protected. Democrats on this committee have been calling for strong privacy and data security legislation for years. We really can't wait, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady's
I yield
time's
back. Thank you,
expired.
Mr. Zuckerberg.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr.
4
Chairman.
minutes.
I need a
Mr.
transcriber
Zuckerberg, thanks
like
for
her.
joining us
Just
today. Let
sit
me
there
add
and
my
listen to me
list,
talk
my name
hype.
to the list of folks that you're going to get back to on the rural broadband internet
He's
access
like-
question.
he's
Please
like
add my
fucking
name to that
vampire,
list.
man.
Of course.
I got a lot of those folks in my district. You're a real American success story. There's no question that you and Facebook have revolutionized the way Americans, in fact, the world, communicate and interconnect with one another. I think one of the reasons that you were able to do that is because nowhere other than here in America, where a young man in college can pursue his dreams and ambitions on his own terms without a big federal government over-regulating them and telling them what they can and cannot do, could you have achieved something like this. But in the absence of federal regulations that would reel that in, the only way it works for the betterment of society and people is with a high degree of responsibility and trust. And you've acknowledged that there have been some breakdowns in responsibility. I think sometimes, and I'm a technology guy. I have 2 degrees in computer science. I'm a software engineer. I'm a patent holder. So I know the challenges that you
Nobody
face
asked him
in
about
terms
all
of
that.
managing the technology. But oftentimes technology folks spend so much time thinking about what they can do and little time thinking about what they should do.
Sociopath.
And so I want to talk about some of those should do kind of things. You heard earlier about faith-based material that had been taken down, ads that had been taken down. You admitted that it was a mistake. That was in my district, by the way, Franciscan University. A faith-based university was the one that did that. How is your content filtered and determined to be appropriate or not appropriate and policy compliant? Is it an algorithm that does it, or is there a team of a gazillion people that sit there and look at each and every ad that make that determination?
More than 20,000 people work on security and content review across the company. But in order to flag some content
Man,
quickly,
I don't believe
we
that.
also build
He said he
technical
got
systems in order
27,000
to take
people
things
working for
down.
him.
So
20,000 of them gonna be working
terrorist
on
content, for
content
example,
security
we'll flag
review?
that, and we can take that down.
We probably
What do you
talking
do
about
when
one
you-
small
when you
initiative
find
thing that each
someone or something
employee
has
has to
made a
do that
mistake? I mean, I've
contributes
heard you
to
say several
security.
times today
Something real
that
simple,
a
routine.
mistake has been made. What kind of accountability is there when mistakes are made?
Acceptable
Because
language.
every time a mistake like that is made, it's a little bit of a chip away from the trust and the responsibility factors. How do you hold people accountable in Facebook when they make those kind of mistakes of taking stuff down that shouldn't be taken down or leaving stuff up that should not be left up?
Congressman, for content reviewers specifically, their performance is going to be measured by whether they do their job accurately. And
You ever fire anybody when they do stuff like that?
I'm sure we do. As part of the normal course of running a company, you're hiring and firing people all the time to grow your capacity and
What happened to the person that took down the Franciscan University ad and didn't put it back up until the media started getting involved?
Congressman, I'm not specifically aware of
Can
that
you take
case.
that question for me? My time has expired. Can you take that question for me and get me that answer back, please?
We will.
Okay, thank you very much. I yield back.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. Lobsack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you and the ranking member for holding this hearing today, and thank Mr. Zuckerberg for being here today as well. Add my name to the rural broadband list as well. I have 1/4 of Iowa, the southeast part of Iowa. We definitely need more help on that front. Thank you. I'll ask you, Mr. Zuckerberg,
These
that
people
you
are
set
asking
out
for
to
more
visit every
internet
state
for
in the
their
country
constituents.
to meet different people. And one of those places you visited was, in fact, Iowa, my home state of Iowa. And you did visit the district that I proudly represent, and you met some of my constituents. As you began your tour, you said that you believed in connecting the world and giving everyone a voice, and that, quote, you wanted, quote, to personally hear more of those voices. I'm going to do the same thing in just a second that a number of my colleagues did and just ask you some questions that were submitted to my Facebook page by some of my constituents. I do want to say at the outset, though, and I do ask for unanimous consent to enter all those questions into the record, Mr. Chair.
Without objection.
I think trust has been the issue today. There's no question about it. I think that's what I'm hearing from my constituents. That's what we're hearing from our colleagues. That's really the question. How can we be guaranteed that, for example, when you agree to some things today, that you're going to follow through and that we're going to be able to hold you accountable, and without perhaps constructing too many rules and regulations. We'd like to keep that to a minimum if we possibly can, but I do understand that you have agreed that we're going to have some rules and regulations so that we can protect people's privacy, so that we can protect that use of the consumer data. So going forward from there, I've just got a few questions I'll probably have an opportunity to get to. The first one goes to the business model issue, because you're publicly traded, is that correct?
Yes.
And you're the CEO.
Yes.
Right. And so I've got Lauren from Solon who asks, is it possible for Facebook to exist without collecting and selling our data? Is it possible to exist?
Congressman, we don't sell people's data. So I think that that's an important thing to clarify up front. And then in terms of collecting data, I mean, the whole purpose of the service is that you can share the things that you want with the people around you, right, or and your friends. So
Is it possible for you to be in business without sharing the data, because that's what you have done, whether it was selling or not, sharing the data, providing it to Cambridge Analytica and other folks along the way? Is it possible for your business to exist without doing that?
well, Congressman, it would be possible for our business to exist without having a developer platform. It would not be possible for our business to, or our products or services or anything that we do to exist without having the opportunity for people to go to Facebook, put in the content that they want to share and who they want to share it with, and then go do that. That's the core thing.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And then Brenda from Muscatine, she has a question obviously related to trust as well, and that is, how will changes promised this time be proven to be completed? She'd like to know, how's that going to happen? If there are changes, you said there have been changes, how can she and those folks in our and throughout America, not just members of Congress, but how can folks in our districts hold you accountable? How do they know that those changes are in fact
I'm
going
about
to
to get
happen?
out the crib in a second, but I had to check out this because
Congressman,
it's very
for
important.
the developer platform changes that we announced, they're implemented. We're putting those into place. We announced a bunch of specific things.
I mean, if you gonna be social media savvy, you gonna be Facebook savvy, you're gonna use these things. You can't be naive when it comes to any of these things, right? So, when it comes to social media, you have to use it for what it's worth. Right now, Facebook has 2 billion users, and like I said earlier, built into their business model is them is capitalizing off the data, taking that data, and they said they're not selling it, but what they basically do is meaning that they are the ones who keep it, but they use that data for companies who want to pinpoint and target people based off the particular data points. So that means that if I was to take out an ad, put $1,000 in an ad or whatever, I can target specifically the type of people that I want to based on Facebook collecting their data for me, and then me being able to use the data that they collected. This is important because what you're hearing about is people using Facebook the correct way, whether it's drug companies, whether it's governments, whether it's just propaganda machines, or whether it's just capitalists and what they call economists using it for money. Facebook is a business. So if you're not using Facebook to make money and things of that nature, and you just caught on this friendly vibe, well, I'm just using this to connect to community, that's bullshit, okay? Because Facebook creates a stimuli performance. It makes you consistently want to use it based on how Facebook manipulates your mind. And they said in this already that they run experiments on people in a consistent manner to make sure that we use it more and more and more. So you got people who they talked about one of the experiments I remember they did was with the homosexual flag, the gay flag, at the marriage rights happened, and they put the flag out there to see if people would change their profiles, and people did. And then they came back and said this was just an experiment for us, not basically saying that we don't really believe in gay rights. That was just an experiment to see what the people would do, and then they was able to collect data and track your performance. So basically, let's say if it was a Christian who did it, a Muslim who did it, or a person who said that they at first were against it who did it, then they take that data and then they can use it to see, okay, well, this person, as far as what they speak about, said that they were against this thing. But when we ran this experiment, we seen that people followed the crowd sense of doing it. So they get to find out how powerful the tools of manipulation are over you, and how much they can use these experiments to control you and consistently make you use Facebook and manipulate you. And so Facebook right now is the best service for marketing and ad. Not TV, not radio, nothing comes close to Facebook and Instagram. So here's the thing I always tell people. It's like when you see a success blueprint, use it. Just use it for your own intent. And Facebook and this whole Congress query and this thing has been out here way before this, of course. People have been using Facebook to make a lot of money, Instagram and social media to make a lot of money. So if you're not using it the correct way, then it's using you. There's no other way to look at how Facebook works. Okay? And with that said, man, I want people to use. I want you to start taking out those Facebook ads, but then I want you to study it first. You know what I mean? Go watch guys like Gary Vaynerchuk who get a game on it, and how you supposed to be using it, how you supposed to build you a business. Because most people are sitting back looking at this from a spectator standpoint as if any of these things really matter to their daily lives, when the real thing matter is how you're going to use it to affect your life and capitalize off of it. You know what I mean? That's what you should be really getting out of it. Not getting like you spectating and being entertained by it and you watching this from some fool's vantage point. Look at it, how it affects and how you can use it, how you can capitalize off of it. Get the science out of it so you can win. You know what I mean? Because that's the issue I have with people. We be watching things and looking at things from the wrong point of view. And it just manipulates and controls our perception. So let's see what they talking about.
Speed on as I probably would be
Well,
if I
you
didn't
have,
have
you have
hearing
20,
that
you have 20,000 employees, as you said, to check content. And I would suggest, as good as you are with analytics, that those 20,000 people, you do some analytical research and see how many conservative websites have been pulled down and how many liberal websites. One of our talk show hosts at home, Nick Reed, this morning on the radio said that if Diamond and Silk were liberal, they'd be on the late night talk show circuit back and forth. They're humorous. They have their opinion. Not that you have to agree or that I have to agree, do agree, don't agree with them. But the fact that they're conservative, and I just remember, if you don't remember anything else from this hearing here today, remember, we do nothing and we overreact.
Gentlemen,
And we're getting ready to overreact, so I would suggest you go home and review all these other things people have accused you of today. Get with your good team, they're behind you. You're the guy to fix this. We're not. You need to save your ship. Thank you.
Gentlemen's time
Mr.
is
Chairman,
expired.
since
Red hour.
my name was mentioned, can I
Well,
just respond?
I tell you, if we
Okay.
could move on, just because we're going to run out of time for members down dais to be able to ask their questions.
Okay, I consider Billy Long a good friend. Let me just say that I don't think it was a breach of decorum, and I just take issue with his saying that a very modest bill that I've introduced is an overreach. That's all.
I didn't say it was an overreach. All I said was that I would just let him remind him of several.
Now recognize. the
She was
gentleman
talking
from
about the
Oregon,
bill that
Mr.
she introduced
Schrader.
about the diversity
Thank you, Mr.
initiative, so that it's not a monolithic type thing to where it's only one type of people in Facebook. So the agenda of what they, and when they do content review, as far as what they find felonious or what they find as propaganda, things like they found out that the Black Lives Matter page, the biggest one that they had was ran by some white guy in like Colorado or Ohio or some shit. It was fake. And so what she was talking about is pages like this, disingenuous pages that only serve, propaganda interests that aren't for the people that are targeting like black and brown people, why weren't those pages found quicker when you all were doing content review? And she was saying one reason that she believed that they weren't found quicker is because of the lack of diversity in Facebook, to where this will become an interest or become an important issue for you all to find, and navigate through. And so I think that she has a very good point myself, because if you got all white people, they're not looking out for black interests or Asian people or Indian. So if you don't have diversity in a company that has 2 billion users and they are one of the biggest sources for news right now, then it can have a impacting effect, as it already does, on communities that's not being represented.
Offices?
Congressman, I do not believe that we have,
And how about Mr. Colgan's office, if I may ask?
Out of here.
one specific point on this is that our audit in the of Cambridge Analytica, we've paused that in order to cede to the UK government, which is conducting its own government audit, which of course, an investigation, which of
Yes,
course
where
takes precedence.
with all due respect, what I'm getting at is I'd like to have the information available for the UK or US law enforcement officials, and I did not hear you commit to that. Will you commit to the committee that Facebook has not destroyed any data or records that may be relevant to any federal, state, or international law enforcement investigation?
Congressman, yes. What I'm saying is that the UK government is going to complete its investigation before we go in and do our audit, so they will have full access
So you've
to all the
suspended
information.
your audit pending the UK's investigation?
Yes, we've
Okay.
paused it pending theirs.
So it's my understanding that you and other Facebook executives have the ability to rescind or delete messages that are on people's websites. To be clear, I just want to make sure that if that is indeed the case, that after you've deleted that information, that somehow law enforcement, particularly relevant to this case, would still have access to those messages.
Congressman, yes. We have a document retention policy of the company where for some people we delete emails after a period of time, but we, of course, preserve anything that there's a legal hold on.
Great. Well, I appreciate that. While you've testified very clearly that you do not sell information, it's not Facebook's model. You do the advertising and obviously have other means of revenue. But it's pretty clear others do sell that information. Doesn't that make you somewhat complicit in what they're doing? You're allowing them to sell the information that they glean from your website?
Well, Congressman, I would disagree that we allow it. We actually expressly prohibit any developer that people
How do you
share their
how do you enforce that?
This is how
That's
he's
my
feeling
concern.
right
How do
now.
you enforce that? Complaint only is what I've heard
Busy
so
up
far
there.
tonight.
Yes, Congressman, some of it is in response to reports that we get, and some of it is we do spot checks to make sure that the apps are actually doing what they say they're doing. And going forward, we're going to increase the number of audits that we do as well.
So last question is my understanding based on the testimony here today that even after I'm off of Facebook, that you guys still have the ability to follow my web interactions. Is that correct?
Congressman,
I've logged out of Facebook. Do you still have the ability to follow my interactions on the web?
Get that reaction.
Congressman, you have control over what we do for ads and the information collection around that. On security, there may be specific things about how you use Facebook, even if you're not logged in, that we keep track of to make sure that people aren't abusing the system.
Gentleman's time has expired. And just for our members who
So
haven't had a chance
yes,
to
they
ask
do
questions,
track
we
you,
will pause
even
at
if you're not using
1:13.
Facebook.
Well, we will have to 1:40. We will continue the hearing after a brief pause, and we'll coordinate that.
Hear that?
Go
You
down
ain't got to
to,
be on
Dr.
Facebook
Sean.
for them to track your data.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you,
and
Mr.
they
Zuckerberg,
use that so that they
being
can
here. There are plenty of anecdotal
get more
examples
data on
coming
your
from
search
family members
habits.
of mine
So
where
you
people
basically give
will be
Facebook
verbally
all
discussing items
of the
never
right to
having
track you,
actually
and
been
you
on
agree
the
to
internet
that
at
by
the time.
logging into Facebook
And
and creating a
then
page.
the next time
period.
they get on Facebook or other online apps, ads for things that they were verbally discussing with each other will show up.
Now, don't get me wrong. They own Instagram
and
too,
I
so
know you said in
Instagram
the
the same. They
Senate
just
that
focus on
Facebook
Facebook
doesn't
because it's a
listen.
bigger platform.
Specifically listen
And they get
to
caught on
what
more.
people are saying through their phone, whether that's a Google phone or whether it's Apple or another one. However, the other day, my mother-in-law and I were discussing her brother who had
Listen
been
to
deceased
this.
for about 10 years, and later on that evening, on her Facebook site, she had set to music kind of a in memoriam picture collage that came up on Facebook specifically to her brother, and that happened the other night. So if you're not listening to us on the phone, Who is, and do you have specific contracts with these companies that will provide data that is being acquired verbally through
He
our
getting
phones,
nervous.
or now through things like Alexa or other products?
Congressman, we're not collecting any information verbally on the microphone, and we don't have contracts with anyone else who is. The only time that we might use the microphone is when you're recording a video or doing something where you intentionally are trying to record audio, but we don't have anything that is trying to listen to what's going on in the background.
Okay, because, like I said, you've talked to people that this has happened to. My son, who lives in Chicago, him and his colleagues were talking about a certain type of suit because they're business guys, and the next day he had a bunch of ads for different suits on it when he went onto the internet. So it's pretty obvious to me that someone is listening to the audio on our phones, and that I see that as a pretty big issue. And the reason is because, and you may not be, but I see this pretty big issue
Look, he
because,
getting nervous.
for example, if
Look
you're
at
in
his
your
shoulders.
doctor's office, if you're in your corporate boardroom, your office, or even personal areas of your home,
He about to swallow,
that's potentially an
yeah.
issue. I'm glad to hear that Facebook isn't listening, but I'm
You gotta check
skeptical
that
that
body
someone
language.
isn't.
He ain't gotta say it.
And I see this as an industry-wide issue that you could potentially help address. And the final thing I'll just ask is that when you have, say, an executive session or whatever, your corporate board, and you have decisions to be made, do you allow the people in the room to have their phones on them?
Congressman, we do. I don't think we have a policy that says that your phone can't be on. And again, I'm not familiar with, Facebook doesn't do this, and I'm not familiar with other companies that do either. My understanding is that a lot of these cases that you're talking about are a coincidence, or someone might be talking about
coincidence.
something, but then they also go to a website or interact
He said
with it
he
on
not
Facebook
familiar. That's plausible
because they were
deniability.
talking
So that
about it,
company
and then
probably
maybe
do
they'll
it.
see the ad
Not
because of
probably,
that,
they do it.
which is a much clearer
He just don't know
statement
about
of
it.
the intent.
Supposedly.
Okay, because if
Fucking
that's
liar.
the case, then, I know for convenience, companies have developed things like Alexa, and I don't want to just, and other companies are developing things like that. But it just seems to me that the whole point of those products is not just for your own convenience, but when you're verbally talking about things and you're not on the internet, they are able to collect information on the type of activities that you're engaging in. So I'd implore the industry to look into that and make sure that, in addition to physical exploring the internet
They
and
tapping
collecting
your
data,
microphone. Don't listen to the
that data
bullshit.
being taken
He know what they
verbally,
talking about.
not be allowed. Thank you.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Kennedy, for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Zuckerberg, thank you for being here. Thank you for your patience
I'll take a sip of
over
that
the
orange
most recent
juice.
testimony. You spoke about the framing of your testimony about privacy, security, and democracy. I want to ask you about privacy and democracy, because I think obviously those are linked. You have said over the course of question yesterday and today that users own all of their data. So I want to make sure that we drill down on that a little bit, and I think our colleagues have tried. That includes, I believe, that the information that Facebook requires users to make public. So that would be a profile picture, gender, age range, all of which is public-facing information. That's right.
Yes.
Okay. So can advertisers then, understanding that you, Facebook, maintain the data, you're not selling that to anybody else, but advertisers clearly end up having access through that through agreements with you about how they then target ads to me, to you, to any other user. Can advertisers in any way use non-public data, so data that individuals would not think is necessarily public, so that they can target their ads?
Congressman, the way this works is, let's say you have a business that is selling skis, okay, and you have on your profile that you are interested in skiing, but let's say you haven't made that public, but you share it with your friends, right? So broadly, we don't tell the advertiser that here's a list of people who like skis. They just say, okay, we're trying to sell skis. Can you reach people who like skis? And then we match that up on our side without sharing any of that information.
Understood. They don't. You don't share that, but they get access to that information, so that if they know that they want to market skis to me because I like skis, on the realm of data that is accessible to them, does Facebook include deleted data?
Congressman, no.
Okay.
And I also would push back on the idea that we're giving them access to the data. We allow them to reach people who said that on Facebook, but we're not giving them access to the data.
Fair.
That's bullshit.
So, can advertisers either directly or
juice
indirectly
again.
get
I'm getting
access to or use the metadata that Facebook collects in order to more specifically target ads? So that would include, I know you've talked a lot about how Facebook would use access to information for folks that, well, I might be able to opt in or out about your ability to track me to other websites.
You wearing that
Is that
blue
used
make you,
by
blue's the
those
color of
advertisers
honesty
as well?
and truth, man. You want to see the people.
Congressman, I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you give me an example of what
So,
you mean?
essentially, does the advertisers that are using your platform, do they get access to information that the user doesn't actually think is either one, being generated, or two, is public? Understanding that, yes, if you dive into the details of your platform, users might be able to shut that off. But I think one of the challenges with trust here is that there's an awful lot of information that's generated that people don't think that they're generating, and that advertisers are being able to target because Facebook collects it.
Yes, Congressman, my understanding is that the targeting options that are available for advertisers are generally things that are based on what people share. Now, once an advertiser chooses how they want to target something, Facebook also does its own work to help rank and determine which ads are going to be interesting to which people. So we may use metadata or other behaviors of what you've shown that you're interested in a newsfeed or other places in order to make our systems more relevant to you. But that's a little bit different from giving that as an option to an advertiser, if that makes sense.
Right, but then I guess the question back to, and I only got 20 seconds, I think one of the rubs that you're hearing is, I don't understand how users then own that data. I think that's part of the rub. Second, you focus a lot of your testimony and the questions on the individual privacy aspects of this, but we haven't talked about the societal implication of it. And I think while I applaud some of the reforms that you're putting forward, the underlying issue here is that your platform has become a mix of 2 seconds. News, entertainment, social media, that is up for manipulation. We've seen that with a foreign actor. If the changes to individual privacy don't seem to be sufficient to address that underlying issue.
Time has expired.
Love your comments on that at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Chair to recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Flores, for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Zuckerberg, thank you for being here today. I'm up here, top row. I'm certain that there are other things you'd rather be doing. The activities of Facebook and other technology companies should not surprise us. I mean, we've seen it before, and again, don't take this critically, but we saw a large oil company become a monopoly back in late 1800s, early 1900s. We saw a large telecommunications company become a near monopoly in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And just as Facebook, these companies were founded by bright entrepreneurs, their companies grew, and eventually they sometimes became detached from everyday Americans. And what happened is policymakers then had to step in and reestablish the balance between those folks and everyday Americans. You didn't intend for this to happen. It did happen, and I appreciate that you've apologized for it. And one of the things I appreciate about Facebook, it appears you're proactively trying to address the situation. Just as we addressed those monopolies in the past, we're faced with that situation today. We need to, and this goes beyond Facebook. This has to do with the edge providers. It has to do with social media organizations and also with ISPs. Back to Facebook in particular, though, we heard examples yesterday during the Senate hearing and also today during this hearing so far about ideological bias among the users of Facebook. In my Texas district, I had a retired school teacher whose conservative postings were banned or stopped. The good news is I was able to work with Facebook's personnel and get her reinstated. That said, the Facebook censors still seem to be trying to stop her postings, and anything you can do in that regard to fix that bias will go a long way. I want to move a different direction.
Personal
talk about the
favors he's trying
future.
to get done.
Congress needs to consider policy responses, as I said earlier, and I want to call this policy response Privacy 2.0 and Fairness 2.0. With respect to fairness, I think the technology companies should be ideologically agnostic regarding their users' public-facing activities. The only exception would be for potentially violent behavior. I'll ask my question is on this. Do you agree that Facebook and other technology
Sweating in line all day.
ideologically neutral?
Congressman, I agree that we should be a platform for all ideas, that we should focus on that.
Good. I've got limited time. With respect to privacy, I think that we need to set a baseline. When we talk about a virtual person that each technology user establishes online, their name, address, their online purchases, geolocation data, websites visited, pictures, etc. I think that the individual owns the virtual person that they've set up online. My second question is this. You said earlier that each user owns their virtual presence. Do you think that this concept should apply to all technology providers, including social media platforms, edge providers, and ISPs?
Congressman, yes. In general, I think that people own their information.
I'm not trying to cut you off. You can provide more information supplementally after if you don't mind. In this regard, I believe that if Congress enacts privacy standards for technology providers, just as we have for financial institutions, healthcare, employee benefits, etc., the policy should state that the data of technology users should be held privately unless they specifically consent to the use of the data by others. This release should be based upon the absolute transparency as to what data will be used, how it will be processed, where it will be stored, what algorithms will be applied to it, who will have access to it, if it will be sold, and to whom it might be sold. The disclosure of this information and the associated opt-in actions should be easy to understand and easier for non-technical users to execute. The days of the long scrolling fine print disclosures with a single check mark at the bottom should end. In this regard, based on my use of Facebook, I think you've come a long way toward meeting that objective. I think we must move further. I'll have two other questions to submit later. And thank you. You can expand on your responses to my earlier questions later. Thank you.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair recognizes gentleman from California for 4 minutes. Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you very much. Seems like we've been here forever, don't you think? Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, for holding this important hearing. I'm of the opinion that basically we're hearing from one of the leaders, the CEO of one of the biggest corporations in the world, but yet almost entirely in an environment that is unregulated, or for basic terms, that the lanes in which you're supposed to operate in are very wide and broad, unlike other industries. Yet at the same time, I have a chart here of the growth of Facebook. Congratulations to you and your shareholders. It shows that in 2009, your net value of the company was less than, or revenue was less than $1 billion. And then you look all the way over to 2016, it was in excess of 26 billion. And then in 2017, apparently about close to 40 billion. Are those numbers relatively accurate about the growth and the phenomenon of Facebook?
Congressman, they sound relatively accurate.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Just so you know, it just brought to my attention, my staff texted me a little while ago that the CEO of Cambridge Analytica apparently stepped down sometime today. I don't know if anybody of your team there whispered that to you, but my staff just reported that. That's interesting. The fact that the CEO of Cambridge Analytica stepped down, does that in and of itself solve the issue and the controversy around what they did?
Congressman, I don't think so. There are a couple of big issues here. One is what happened specifically with Cambridge Analytica. How were they able to buy data from a developer that people chose to share it with? And how do we make sure that that can't happen again?
But some of that information did originate with Facebook, correct?
People had it on Facebook and then chose to share theirs and some of their friends' information with this developer, yes.
Something was brought to my attention most recently that apparently Facebook does in fact actually buy information to add or augment the information that you have on some of your users to build around them, their profile?
Congressman, we just recently announced that we were stopping working with data brokers as part of the ad system.
But you did do that to build your company in the past.
It's an industry standard ad practice, and recently, upon examining all of our systems, we decided that's not a thing that we want to be a part of, even if everyone else is doing.
But you did engage in that as well, not just everybody else, but Facebook yourselves, you did engage in that.
Yes, until we announced that we're shutting it down, yes.
Okay. It's my understanding that when The Guardian decided to report on the Cambridge Analytica consumer data issue, Facebook threatened to sue them if they went forward with their story. It appears, did it happen something like that? Facebook kind of warned them like, hey, maybe you don't want to do that?
Congressman, I don't believe that. I think that there may have been a specific factual inaccuracy that we
So in other words, you checking the Guardian and saying you're not going to want to go out with that story because it's not 100% factual.
That's a specific point, yes.
Okay. Now, but however, they did go through with their story, regardless of the warnings or the threats of Facebook saying that you don't not going to want to do that.
Fake news,
When they
the actual
and
media,
only then
fake
did
news all day.
Facebook actually apologize for that incident, for that 89 million users' information, unfortunately, ending up in their hands. Isn't that the case?
Congressman, you're right that we apologized after they posted the story. They had the most of the details of what was right there, and I don't think we objected to that.
Thank you.
Specific things.
Okay, but I only have a few more seconds. My main point is this. I think it's time that you, Facebook, if you want to truly be a leader in all the sense of the word and recognize that you can, in fact, do right by American users of Facebook, and when it comes to information, unfortunately, getting in the wrong hands, you can be a leader. Are you committed to actually being a leader in that sense?
Chairman, the gentleman's time.
Can you give a 2-second answer?
Sure.
Congressman, I am definitely committed to taking a broader view of our responsibility. That's what my testimony is about, making sure that we don't just give people tools, but make sure that they're used for good.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And with that, we will recess for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We'll recess for 10 minutes and then resume the hearing.
All right. Well, there you have it. I took a quick little break. I'm back. Hold on. Facebook, Congress versus the people. You know, you stay up to date on these things because they affect you, especially if you're a business person. You know, um, what I learned from this is I want to use more Facebook ads. You know what I'm saying? Because Facebook has really got it down to where they collect the data of billions of people and they can target the direct audience that I want to. I already knew about this, but you need to. It's a hearing on. You get to hear the transparency from the CEO of the company, and of course he avoided questions like a motherfucker, but there was also a lot that you can get from. I think the average person, they look at this all the wrong way. People are looking at it as this is an attack on Zuckerberg, and this is Zuckerberg, my man. The American people are stupid. Most Facebook users are stupid and can be easily manipulated and swayed. And their data is collected and used against them even when you're not using Facebook. And that was a very important thing to note, that your data is always being tracked. Your voices, your microphone, everything about this phone right here is that it's not just your phone. You know, it's the manufacturer, it's Apple, it's Facebook, it's every app that you use. And if you read the terms of service and agreement, you actually agree to giving your data away. And what they do with your data is they sell it to other companies for profit. You know, so that's an important thing. And if you really have an understanding of what that means, then you can figure out how you can capitalize off of it as well. The day you stop looking at Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, all of these different platforms as a capitalist business and built into their business um, goals is to make capital, which means that they capital run, capital influence everything that they study. All the experimentation is to gain more capital, keep people using their site, keep continuous experimentation. This is $1 billion company, so they will spend $1 billion to make sure you continue to use it in whatever experimentation that they have to do on your mind to manipulate you, to hack your brain, to make you mindless and numb and dumb to the crowd mind. They will do that. So what you got to say is, well, how can I use this? How can this work for me? Well, they told you how governments use it. Russia used it to create their own propaganda to sway elections. They told you how companies use it when they collect data points and they can pinpoint and target the direct audience that they want to. They told you how people create fake news just so that they can get clickbait, so that they can make money off of it. They told you how everybody uses it to sway, influence, manipulate, and capitalize off the people. So when you hear things like this, you should say, wait a minute. This is an opportunity that I have the possibility of interacting with. Interact with that opportunity to where you can use it for self. Everybody that's watching this right now should use Facebook and Instagram for what it's worth. You know what I'm saying? Learn the native platform language. Learn how to pinpoint and target these ads, because I haven't even been using ads and things of that nature the way that I could. I've been generating audience just based off my savviness of knowing how to use social media, speak the language of social media, and win off of it. But if I was targeting ads, I would be 10 times bigger than I am right now. So what I'm doing right now is actually trying to build up the capital from different investors and things of that nature, so I can get my ads targeted, so I can spend $10,000 on targeted ads and it give me a $100,000 return. That's the possibility. You spend $100 to get you $1,000 return. If you can target the ads correctly and you got the product and you have the things to draw in the audience and the customers and things of that nature correctly. So, people, Facebook, Instagram, all of these things, regardless of what business that you're building, it's a way that you can use these native platforms and use all of them, because the ad space right now is very cheap. It's the cheapest ads. You used to, how much money you had to spend on a TV ad back in the day to reach the same target audience that you would on a Facebook ad. And then when people are not watching Facebook or TV during the commercials, they looking at their phone. So the attention is all on the phone. You on your phone right now. And the average person is spending hours a day on their phone. So they are in this virtual reality space. So you have to capitalize on this virtual reality space. And that's what Facebook do all day. They capitalize off this virtual reality space, and the boy that made billions of dollars. They showed you a success blueprint, so we got to start using it. You saying nothing gonna change as far as like this was nothing. This was a bunch of old white men asking a young white billionaire how he runs his company, at figuring out ways that they can appease their constituency to act like they're doing something. It's also an oligarchy, which means that it's ran by corporations. It's ran by the FDA, which is ran by corporations. So when they get to talking about things like opioids and stuff like that just means Facebook is cutting into the profit of the pharmaceutical companies. Things are consistently and constantly changing all the time. But the companies are the ones influencing the change. That's the thing. These big companies aren't going nowhere. You know what I mean? So when it comes to things like that, you just have to figure out how you can sway the change as well. How you create your own propaganda for your own programming, for your own system, for your own capitalization. America is a capitalist society. You are meant to capitalize. You just supposed to be righteous in your intent. We just let the evil motherfuckers capitalize because we think we taking a high moral position by not capitalizing off of it. In fact, we are doing more damage by not capitalizing because now you're not making the rich people, the righteous rich, which means that they have less power and influence. So they don't get to actually able to invest in their thoughts. You know what I mean? So I try to implore, the righteous to get more money so they can have more power. And with that power, they get to influence to change the world. So create your own propaganda machines. You know what I mean? For righteous intent to combat the bullshit out there. But as well, it's create content curators, man. Content curators run the world. You know what I mean? Everybody needs the content curators, the influencers. You know what I mean? The people who are leading in this social sphere, the people who understand it. So you have to be a content curator and an influencer in this sphere. You know what I mean? So that you can win as well because everybody else is winning off you. You know what I mean? And it's important that you understand it because when you think about things that they're talking about, like them having algorithms and artificial intelligence, and these average words go over people's head. You know what I mean? Artificial intelligence, algorithms. We talking about systems being ran by machines. Machines that have their own thinking patterns and thinking capabilities. And so people don't know nothing about quantum machines and algorithms and artificial intelligence. You are not understanding this, but you are being manipulated in your life is actually having some points of control based upon these new systems and these new machines. Facebook is one big ass conglomerate system, and they have any tech geniuses constantly figuring out ways to experiment on your mind so they can get you to continue to use it so they can sell to people the usage and the data of the consumer. You are creating all of these impressions. You are making all of this money. You are generating all of this content, and Facebook takes it and then they sell that. And you're not making no money off of it. So if you're not making no money off Facebook, then Facebook is just using you. You are a consumer of Facebook when you could be a boss on Facebook. Make some money because they're going to make some money on you regardless. When you see a person got 1 million followers, Facebook is making way more money off them than they making on Facebook most of the time. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with Instagram. Same thing with Snapchat. Same thing with Twitter. Same thing with all of these. Always find social media so you can use it in the correct manner. Nothing else matters. Everything else is fake as far as I feel like I'm closely connected to community. No, if y'all not using it to win, it's a waste. You know what I mean? It's a waste, man. You feel me? So let's become smarter on social media. Like I say, I always gather people to Gary Vaynerchuk because next month I'm going to be speaking a lot more on the uses of social media, how to get your content out there better, how to build a business around using social media, Facebook ads, all of those different things. Next month, I'm going to be really diving in deep, and I'm going to be taking some people under my wing that want to, pay for coaching and things of that nature as I go along with them, whatever their business is. I haven't even taken any money from people to place any ads on any of my Instagram and things of that nature because I wanted to build a relationship up with the people first. That's important. You know what I mean? So I haven't even started to capitalize off my platforms, and I get millions of impressions every month. You know what I mean? So it's important that you figure it out so that you can use it in the correct manner. And a lot of people not using it right. A lot of people content sucks and they're not using it properly. And that becomes a big issue because people be putting out anything and then they be, why people not clicking on this? Well, you didn't post this and create the content in the native language of how it's supposed to be posted to where a person wants to repost. Repost value is very important. I create content for repost value. So if a person sees the content and they agree with it, it also has to be aesthetically pleasing to where if they post it on their page, it looks good and other people want to repost it as well. And then I put my watermarks on it and things of that nature as well to consistently keep my engagement and my impressions up. Because once your impressions go down, then they stop showing people so much. You have to hack the algorithm. You have to get into a rhythm of this. This is your channel. You know what I mean? This is where you get to channel your energy, your intent, your ideas, and people get to observe it and help it grow and make it bigger. And if you're not using it in the correct manner, then it's using you and you losing. If you got a business and you're not running ads, if you got a business and you don't have an IG and you don't have a Facebook, then you're missing out on a big source of income that you could be making. And that's just real. Old people, I don't have one. Or young people, I don't have one. Why not? I'm not saying it's like in the Matrix where the dude, Neo plug in, he a plug out, but he had to plug into the system to fight it. He lost when he plugged out the system. He didn't beat the machines. He created an agreement with the machines. You know what I mean? So, but he had to plug into it, become a master of it, plugged into it. Then he was able to fight the system from the inside and gain more control and access of it. So you have to use the system because you as this one individual are not about to destroy the system, of course. It takes a group of individuals to run the world around the world. And that's how it works. So people, let's win, win, win. Let's get off today. Let's go figure out how to make these Facebook ads. Let's repost this because I need more people tapping in. And let's just win. Let's just win this whole social sphere. Let's win this whole social media and let's get there. You feel me? That's bruh right there. I'm going to make sure he get his Facebook followers up. Yeah, no, here's the thing. I love Derek Gray. That's my bruh. You know what I mean? I done learned a lot of game from him on how to use these. Of course, you don't. Here's the thing. You don't need a team for anything. Here's my motto. Here's my quote. And I'm about to say this. There's one thing on this. If you want to get something done, do it yourself. So do it yourself. Get your ads, run your money, win. You know what I mean? But if you want to do more, get you a team. And that statement holds true regardless of who telling you it.
That's right.
Derek Grace wins because he's intelligent. He knows how to do that. You know what I mean? His family is his team. His mind is his team. You know what I mean? But he took time to understand that and he has mentorship. So the man is intelligent. So when you hear things like that, you have to understand that he's telling you that he became his own team. You know what I mean? But here's the thing. And this goes true for everybody, not just Derek Grace. But if you have a team, it's just infatigable truth that, empirical truth that you're going to go farther. Because there's only so much you can do yourself. So if I pay me a team, I say, here, I'm going to give you $1,000 a month. And the only sole job I want you to focus on is, get his in-home banking. Matter of fact, go tell Derek Grace I sent you to get his in-home baking project. You know what I mean? Get it. That's my bro. We gonna do something together soon. But go ahead and if I was to hire somebody, I say, look, I'm gonna give you $1,000 a month. I want you to target the exact audience. I don't want you to think about nothing else but targeting my audience that I need. The people that meet these data points, that are interested in the sort of content that I have, so they will become the consumers that I need. And if they focus on that every month, it will boost what I can do by myself times 10. And that's the truth. Organizations fear organization because the more you organize, the more you can do. The more people you have looking at things, the more you can do. Facebook can't do nothing. Mark Zuckerberg can't do shit by himself. He got 27,000 employees. You know what I'm saying? And they need all of those people to work the inner workings of that system. There's no corporation built with just one man in it. These corporations has people under there so that this person can focus on one thing at a time, the most important thing. If I create the content, I might need somebody to market it. And then that marketer might need an assistant so he don't have to deal with the other things that he plug in. So each way allows one person to focus on one thing at a time so they can give all of their energy to that specific point of mastery. So I'm glad you brought up my brother Derek. Sharp, bruh, man. I can't wait to do an event with him soon. I love all his projects. Yeah. I like Duchess too. She started following me. Peace to the beautiful sis. I haven't met the sis in real life yet though. Where you at? What's that? South Carolina or something? Because I mean, I got a lot of people out that way so far. Been telling me to come out there. You know what I mean? And I need to make that trip, but I'm gonna start touching on social media. North Carolina, Charlotte. I'm gonna start touching on social media more often. Coming soon. And I'm about to really get in on it. Look, they about to starting back up. Starting back up. Luke Skywalker is back. And Darth Vader about to get to these questions. So we about to dig back into this real quick.
And we will go next to the gentlelady from Indiana, Ms. Brooks, for 4 minutes to resume questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Zuckerberg, for being here today. It's so critically important that we hear from you and your company because we do believe that it's critically important for you to be a leader in these solutions. One thing that's been talked about just very little, but I think is very important, and I want to make sure there's appropriate attention on how the platform of Facebook, but even other platforms, and you've mentioned it a little bit, how you help us in this country keep our country safe from terrorists. And so that I've talked with lots of people who actually continue to remain very concerned about recruitment of their younger family members, and now we're
I'll be good, sister. I got some colloidal I'm gonna be selling on my site.
Of women as well to join terrorist organizations. And so I'm very, very concerned. I'm a former U.S. attorney, and so when 9/11 happened, you didn't exist. Facebook didn't exist. But since the evolution
The government
after 9/11,
existed. The government did that 9/11 shit. That's
that
why.
Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda, ISIS has used social media like we could not even imagine. So can you please talk about, and then you talk
CIA,
about
the biggest propaganda
the fact
machine.
that if there is content that is objectionable or is a danger, that people report it to you. But what if they don't? What if everybody assumes that someone is reporting something to you? So I need you to help assure us, as well as the American people, what is Facebook's role, leadership role, in helping us fight terrorism and help us stop the recruitment? Because it is still a grave danger.
Sister, it's about to come. I just locked in the manufacturer for the gold and the silver. So yeah, I'm gonna be dropping the gold and the silver soon, and I'm gonna be talking about it in the video to really give you the explanation of the properties.
99% of the ISIS and Al Qaeda content that we take down.
Thank you, Shaba Banks.
Systems and taken down before anyone in our system even flags it for us. So that's an example of
y'all want to go ahead and send brother some paper
that we're proud of, and that I think is a
bio.
model for other types of harmful content as well.
Can I ask though, and I appreciate, and I've heard you say 99%, and yet
for the people that
asked
and didn't ask about the donate, go ahead and click the link in my IG.
ISIS content was discovered on Facebook, which included an execution video. March 29th. On April 9th, there were 5 pages located on April 9th of Hezbollah content, and so forth. And so, what is the mechanism that you're using? Is it artificial intelligence? Is it the 20,000 people?
We really talking about artificial intelligence, people. This is here. It's 2018. Y'all understand what kind of world we're in.
I appreciate that no system is perfect, but yet this is just within a week.
Congressman, it's a good question, and it's a combination of technology and people. We have a counterterrorism
Click that like button too.
At Facebook.
It's 18 people, and I only got 11 likes.
200 people are just focused on counterterrorism, and there are other content reviewers who are reviewing content that gets flagged to them as well. So those are folks who are working specifically on that. I think we have capacity in 30 languages that we're working on.
Thank you.
And in addition to that, we have a number of AI tools that we're
5 other
developing,
people click
like
that
the ones
like
that I
button,
mentioned, that can
and that
proactively
matches
go
the amount of
flag the
people in
content.
here.
And so you might have those people looking for the content. How are they helping block the recruiting?
Yes,
Which
so
is
there,
still your platform, as well as Twitter, and then WhatsApp is how they then begin to communicate, which I understand you own. Is that correct?
yes.
So how are we stopping the recruiting and the communications?
So we identify what might be the patterns of.
Thank you. My time is up. Thank you, and please continue
When
to
your
work
caller
with us
ID
and
tell you
all the
you spam
governments
or
who are
not?
trying to
Yeah.
fight.
That's why I don't be answering
And
people.
Mr.
They
Chairman,
never
if you
follow
don't
up
mind,
like
before we
that.
go to the next question, there was something that I wanted to correct in my testimony from earlier, when I went
I
back
pay
and
for
talked to
that
my team
monthly.
afterwards. I'd said
I pay for that
if-
monthly.
If, this was in
kind of
response to a
service is
question
that?
about
Card ID?
whether, weblogs, that.
Click that like button if you're here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel too.
I had said that they were, and I
If
clarified.
you want me
with
to
my
do a
team
lot
that,
more
in fact,
content,
weblogs are
go ahead and
not,
click the donation button in my IG as well.
only store them temporarily.
We'll be bringing the second season of the podcast back soon.
Into a set of ad interests that you might be interested in those ads, and we put that in the download your information.
I love y'all for real.
Control over that.
Where is that?
So I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
The basketball.
Thank you. We'll go now to a gentleman from California, Mr. Reed.
No, I'm saying where we go play.
Thank you, Mr. Zuckerberg, for appearing before the committee today.
Oh, okay, cool. Give me a
Fact
second.
is,
then.
Mr. Zuckerberg, Facebook failed its customers. You've said as much yourself. You've apologized. We appreciate that. We as Congress have a responsibility to figure out what went wrong here and what could be done differently to better protect consumers' private digital data in the future. So my first question for you, Mr. Zuckerberg, is why did Facebook not notify the FTC in 2015 when you first discovered this had happened? And was it the legal opinion of your company that you were under no obligation to notify the FTC even with the 2011 consent order in place?
Congressman, in retrospect, it was a mistake, and we should have, and I wish we had notified and told people about it.
Did you think that
the reason why we didn't?
The rules were kind of lax, that you were sort of debating whether you needed to or something?
Yes, Congressman, I don't believe that we necessarily had a legal obligation to do so. I just think that it was probably, I think that it was the right thing to have done. The reason why we didn't do it at the time.
Well, you answered my question. Would you agree that for Facebook to continue to be successful, it needs to continue to have the trust of its users?
Absolutely.
Great. So, does this not perhaps strike you as a weakness with the current system that you were not required to notify the FTC of a potential violation of your own consent decree with them, and that you did not have clear guidelines for what you as a company needed to do in this situation to maintain the public's trust and act in their best interest?
Congressman,
Appreciate you,
regardless
Seti
of what
Bear.
laws or regulations are that are in place, we take a broader view of our responsibilities around privacy, and I think that we should have notified people because
Peace.
I'm just trying to think of the other CEO who might not have such
Hey,
a
we got the mics up.
and might interpret the different legal requirements.
No, the likes is up. It probably just haven't updated on your side. It's more likes I see.
I'm also taking a broad view as a congressman here to try to fix this problem. So from what we've learned over the past 2 days of hearings, it just doesn't seem like the FTC has the necessary tools to do what needs to be done to protect consumer data and consumer privacy. And we can't exclusively rely on companies to self-regulate in the best interest of consumers. So, Mr. Zuckerberg, would it be helpful if there was an entity clearly tasked with overseeing how consumer data is being collected, shared, and used, and which could offer guidelines, at least guidelines for companies like yours to ensure your business practices are not
Thank
in
you, Nightly
violation of
Rose.
the law, something like a digital consumer protection agency?
Subscribe to the
Congressman, I
channel.
think it's an idea that deserves a lot of consideration. I think I'm not the type of person who thinks that there should be no regulation, especially because the internet is getting to be so important in people's lives around the world. But I think the details on this really matter. And whether it's an agency or a law that is passed, or the FTC has certain abilities, I think that is all something that we should.
Well, one of the things that
We
we're
said the
realizing is that
exact
there's
sentence
a lot of
yesterday.
holes in the system. That we don't have the toolbox. You don't have the toolbox to monitor 9 million apps and tens of thousands of data collectors, and there's no specific mechanism for you to collaborate with those that can help you prevent these things from happening. And so I think that perhaps if we started having these discussions about what would have been helpful for you to build your toolbox and for us to build our toolbox so that we can prevent things like Cambridge Analytica, things like identity thefts, things like
Thank you, Nightly Rose. I appreciate
what we're
you.
seeing, what we've heard about today. So, I just want to thank you for your thoughts and testimony. So it's clear to me that this is the beginning of many, many conversations on the topic, and I look forward to working with you and the committee to better protect consumer privacy.
Congressman, we look forward to following up too.
Thank you.
Now go to Gentleman of Oklahoma, Mr. Mullen, for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and sir, thank you for being here. I appreciate you using the term Congressman and Congresswoman. My name is Mark Wayne Mullen, and feel free to use that name. Sir, I just want to tell you, first of all, I want to commend you on your ability to not just invent something, but to see it through its growth. We see a lot of inventors have the ability to do that, but to manage it and to see it through its tremendous growth period
I'm about to close
takes
this down.
a lot of talent. And you can show, or by your showing here today, you handle yourself well, so thank you on that. And you also do that by hiring the right people, so I commend
I'm gonna meet
on
you out
doing
there.
that also. You hire people, obviously, based on their ability to get the job done. Real quick, couple questions I have, and I'll give you time to answer it. Isn't it the consumer's responsibility to some degree to control the content to which they release?
Congressman, I believe that people should have the ability to choose to share their data how they want, and they need to understand how that's working. But I agree with what you're saying, that people want to have the ability to move their data to another app, and we want to give them the tools to do that.
Right. And does the device settings, does it really help you protect what information is released? For instance, there's been a lot of talk about them searching for something maybe on Google, and then the advertisement pops up on Facebook. Isn't there a setting on most devices to where you can close out the browser without Facebook interacting with that?
Yes, Congressman. On most devices, the way the operating system is architected would prevent something that you do in another app like Google from being visible to the Facebook app.
See, I come from the background of believing that everything I do, I assume, is open for anybody to take when I'm on the internet. I understand that it is privacy concerns, but you're still releasing it to something farther than a pen and pad. So once I'm on the web or I'm on an app, then that information is subject to going really any place. All I can do is protect it the best I can by my settings. And so what I'm trying to get to is, as an individual, as a user of Facebook, how can someone control keeping the content within the realm that they want to keep it without it being collected? You say that you don't sell it. However, you do sell advertisement. As a business owner, I have a demographic that I go after, and I search advertisers that market to that demographic. So you collect information for that purpose, right?
Congressman, yes, we collect information to make sure that the ad experience on Facebook can be relevant and valuable to the small businesses and others who want to reach people.
Value-based. But if I'm a customer or a user of Facebook and I don't want that information to be shared, how do I keep that from happening? Is there settings within the app that I need to go to block all that?
Congressman, yes, there is. There is a setting, so if you don't want any data to be collected around advertising, you can turn that off, and then we won't do it. In general, we offer a lot of settings over every type of information that you might want to share on Facebook, and every way that you might interact
that
with
like
the system,
button.
from here's the content that you put on your page, to here is who can see your interests, to here's how you might show up in search results if people look for you, to here's how you might be able to sign into developer apps and log in with Facebook and advertising. And we try to make the controls as easy to understand as possible. It's a broad service. People use it for a lot of things, so there are a number of controls, but we try to make it as easy as possible and to put those controls in front of people so that they can configure the experience in the way that they want.
Would that have kept apps from seeking our information, if that's it.
Gentleman's time.
All right. Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, they don't get
Thank you.
enough time to ask
Recognize
real
now
questions and dig in.
California for 4 minutes.
Hell, you gonna do something with
Thank
4
you,
minutes?
Thank you, Mr. Zuckerberg, for being with us today, and I know it's been a long day. I think we could all agree that technology has outpaced the law with respect to the protection of private information. I wonder if you think it would be reasonable for Congress to define the legal duty of privacy that's owed by private companies to their customers with respect to their personal information. Congressman, I think that makes sense to discuss, and I agree with the broader point that I think you're making, which is that the internet and technology overall is just becoming a much more important part of all of our lives. The companies in the technology industry are growing. Right, that's what I mean by it's outpaced. And I wonder, I also want to take you at your word. I believe you're sincere that you personally place a high value on consumer privacy, and that personal commitment is significant at Facebook today coming from you, given your position. But I also observe, and you'd agree, that the performance on privacy has been inconsistent. I wonder, myself, whether that's because it's not a bottom line issue. It appears that the shareholders are interested in maximizing profits. Privacy certainly doesn't drive profits, I don't think, but also may interfere with profits if you have to sacrifice your ad revenues because of privacy concerns. Would it not be appropriate for us, once we define this duty, to assess financial penalties in a way that would sufficiently send a signal to the shareholders and to your employees, who you must be frustrated with too, that the privacy you're so concerned about is a bottom line issue at Facebook? Congressman, it's certainly something that we can consider, although one thing that I would push back on is I think it is often characterized as maybe these mistakes happen because there's some conflict between what people want and business interests. I actually don't think that's the case. I think a lot of these hard decisions come down to different interests between different people. So, for example, on the one hand, people want the ability to sign into apps and bring some of their information and bring some of their friends' information in order to have a social experience. And on the other hand, everyone wants their information locked down and completely private. And the question is not a business question as much as which of those equities do you weigh more? I think part of it is that, but part of it is also what happened with Cambridge Analytica. Some of this data got away from us. And I'd suggest to you that if there were financial consequences to that made a difference to the business, not people dropping their Facebook accounts, then it would get more attention. And it's not so much a business model choice. I congratulate you on your business model. But it's that these issues aren't getting the bottom line attention that I think would have made them a priority with respect to Facebook. Let me just follow up in my final time on an exchange you had with Senator Graham yesterday about regulation. And I think Senator said, do you as a company welcome regulation? You said if it's the right regulation, then yes. Question, do you think that the Europeans have it right? And you said, I think they get some things right. I wanted you to elaborate on what the Europeans got right and what do you think they got wrong? Congressman, well, there are a lot of things that the Europeans do, and I think that GDPR in general is going to be a very positive step for the internet. And it codifies.
Man, we need Facebook reparations.
Things in there are things that we've done for a long time. Some of them are things that I think would be good steps for us to take. So, for example, the controls that
they're making people slaves and capitalizing off of it.
Controls that we've offered around the world for years. Putting the tools in front of people repeatedly, not just having them in settings, but putting them in front of people and getting and making sure that people understand what the controls are and that they get affirmative consent, I think is a good thing to do that we've done periodically in the past. But I think it makes sense to do more. And I think that's something that GDPR will require us to do and will be positive. Anything you think they got wrong? I need to think about that more. Well, I appreciate it if you could respond in writing. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We'll go now to the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Hudson.
Man, I'm done with this.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Zuckerberg, for being here. This is a long
I think
day.
y'all get the overall point, man.
We sure appreciate
You know,
being here. I can say from my own experience.
Use Facebook the way you want to use it so that you can capitalize off of it. Remember that it's a business. And don't let it use you because it's out to hack your mind so they can use your data. It tracks you. The transparency is there. If you think you have any protection on Facebook or any of these sites or using your phone, period, you are completely lying to yourself. And you're a fool and you're becoming a consumer. use it for your own business interests to propagate whatever you want to do so you can make money off of it. If you're not making money off of it, then you are just a consumer and a fool. Focus on big business and use it the correct way. Learn how the native platforms work. Use the language of it. Profit off of your channel because this is your channel. This is your media. This is your content, your information. And as long as you're using it, somebody else is using you. So make sure that you get your due process. Make sure you get your cut out of it. Make sure you get your money. You know what I'm saying? And don't just use it. Let me go check and vent on here. Let me go just find some gossip. Let me just go be nosy. Let me just go get entertained and laughed. Then you are captured into that fraction of a people who are just sheeps for the slaughter. When you could have been a shepherd and you could have been leading. You know what I mean? The average, you get a person who's tech savvy in the third world country and you give them a phone and they know what they're doing, they can bring home money for their whole family. That's if you know what you're doing. But if you're not thinking of it like that and you haven't updated yourself to the new language of Facebook, the new language of social media, then you're not going to make profit off of it and you're not going to use it in the capitalistic manner that it's supposed to be used. You know what I mean? And then you become a fool, a tool, and a dummy that can be, manipulated for however they want to. You've been experimented on constantly, consistently on the daily, and your mind is being hacked so that it reacts to the stimuli of how Facebook works. And they have over 27,000 people working in this company, and a large percent of those people is to make sure you continuously use it. So, get your money, because they getting theirs. Peace.